Hi everyone, I'm Luke Hector and you're watching The Broken Meeple. This is a YouTube channel about board games where I give reviews, top 10s and my honest opinions, regardless of the consequences. We'll get on with the show in just a minute, but first a quick word from my sponsor. As a fellow gamer, you'll understand this is unacceptable. The solution? Head down to my new sponsor, Kiender.co.uk. Kiender stocks many of the hot new releases as well as some old hidden gems. Free delivery on orders over £30, further discounts on bulk purchases, and even 5% of your spending refunded back to you as points to be used for further discounts down the line. If you use the referral link in the description below and sign up for a new account, you'll get 5% discount on your first order over £60. So let's make gaps in your collection a thing of the past. Get down to Kiender and start saving today. Thank you for listening and enjoy the rest of the video.
Get on with it.
So today I'm taking a look at Flamecraft, the cutesy little dragony game from Cardboard Academy and Lucky Duck Games for family weight ? More on that later. But it's a worker placement game effectively where you have all these different shops that give you various resources like potions, food, diamonds and bread, etc. And what you're doing is you go onto a shop with your dragon piece and you're playing dragons. You've got these different little cutesy dragons and more on the artwork and that later. But you'll play like Flint or Fondue or Loaf or Patina or Bob. Yeah, there are some weird discrepancies with these dragon names in here. But essentially when you go to these shops, you're gathering resources and you're placing dragons in order to trigger their abilities and get more rewards. What you're essentially aiming to do is, of course, have the most victory points.
Of course!
But you do the bulk of that by enchanting the various stores. So you have to go and get the resources and trigger the dragon effects, but then what you'll have is a bunch of enchantment cards, which is essentially gather the resources, pay the cost, and put the enchantment on the shop, which essentially makes it more lucrative in the future. But that's essentially the gist of the game. You have these shops. As you fill each shop, more shops come out, and then you'll draw more dragons and you'll put layers out, gather more resources, do more enchantments, and you'll be able to score a few extra points by gathering fancy dragons, although I mean, they look kind of similar to the normal dragons. I'm not quite certain why they're fancy. And some of these may be great little scoring opportunities during the game, and some will be end-game scoring opportunities. But you just keep going on until the dragon deck or the enchantment deck runs out. Play another turn each, and there you go. Count up the victory points and see who wins.
Dracarys.
So we've started off with a pretty simplistic overview because that's one of the plus points of this game. It is very, very simple. You know, the rulebook may look big, but honestly, a lot of that is big font. Some of it is just the appendices where it's talking about solo mode and different like FAQ characteristics. But the actual rules themselves are in big text with a lot of picture representation, and you know, there you go, set up and you're done. And this is mainly just a component thing. There's not that many pages in here. This is an easy game to pick up and play. You could take this to a game cafe and it wouldn't take long for people to get going. The only slight negative on it is that I did mention about appendices at the back. There are a few occasions I've played with some of these dragon abilities and some of the combinations with them in the shops where you do need to go to the back of the book and just go, hang on a minute, how on earth does Spellfire Springs work with that then? And then you read it and it usually, 99% of the time, is actually giving me the answer I needed. So it's a good comprehensive set of rules, very easy to read. I didn't find any glaring errors in it, but yeah, this is a nice straightforward game to learn. To play it, it's also relatively straightforward, although where it says family weight, I might be underestimating kids' intelligence here, but
No. Me, nah. You guys, yeah. Maybe a little more down in here.
I think there's a few things here that are going to flummox kids a bit. Kids are going to go, oh, look, little dragons, and yay, I get the red dragon and the gold dragon, and look, I get little Suzette dragon, little cutie. And it certainly has the aesthetic appeal to kids. But you've got dragons that bounce around all over the place and swap with other dragons and then gain multiple goods, and then the enchantments require you to put them on specific shops, and some of the shops have got special abilities, and you've got companion abilities which are once per game things that you can trigger. There's a fair amount going on in this game. I mean, more so than something like, say, Takinoko, you know, so where people sort of go, oh, that's not particularly gateway game-ish. Well, this certainly ain't gateway game. This is a light game, but I feel like kids might just take a game or two to get used to how some of these effects work, but for the most part, they should get into it eventually. But yeah, I mean, non-gamers should be able to pick this up with relative ease, and, you know, gamers, yeah, not a problem. I mean, you can learn this in about 5 minutes and get started playing if you're used to this kind of thing. Component-wise, well, you've seen all the cards, you've seen all those, but I haven't got the PS de Resistance yet. Wow. Okay. I mean, I can practically wear this like a scarf. I did it in the unboxing video. But yeah, this is a playmat, neoprene playmat of where you put the shops and the various cards and the score track. Gotta give props for production quality to give you something like this in there. Although it being long like this does make it a little bit interesting to find a table space for it. Also, the stitching on here is kind of weird because on one side I can see the full shop picture, but then on the other side the shop pictures are cut in half. If you look in the rulebook, if it was a board, it would have the full bit of the shop on there, but on one side it just feels like the roofs have been lopped off. So I don't know if that was an error in this printing, but curious to see if anybody else has had that issue. It is a little bit weird when you look at it. Also, the font choice is kind of odd on here. These scores, some of these numbers look very similar to each other. So when you're counting up your victory points, you're easily going to mistake 6s for 8s and for 9s, and it's just going to be a little bit hard to read at a glance. But all in all, like I say, it's nice to get a neoprene mat in a game as a retail copy. The artwork is beautiful. Artwork by Sandra Tang, and it's gorgeous. It's really nice, cutesy artwork, colourful. The dragon designs are all nice. I mean, it's, you know, if you've got some people that are like My Little Pony fans or like that sort of animation or whatever, you've got lots of cool little nice, like, just things to make you go, aww, aww. Very good artwork, especially on the shops. I mean, these shops are telling a story in every portrait. So, you know, I play with a couple of friends who are like major sort of geek out girls when it comes to like cutesy artwork. And it's like, are you going to take your turn? Turn! So she's too busy like staring at the cards. And, you know, you got to admit, they're very nice. They're all unique. There's a lot of them. There's a decent amount of shops in here. And you don't use them all every game, so you get a good amount of variety. But the artwork, stellar. Really like it. Where the game falls on components, though, is, I think, the Kickstarter syndrome. Yes, Kickstarter allows you to get 3 different upgrades to this game. Metal coins, miniatures, and wooden tokens. You can tell, I think, that, I feel like you could have put some of those in the game already. Some of them are completely unnecessary, but a couple of them I think should have been mandatory from the get-go. So, first of all, the miniature dragons. Each of these cost what, like, I think it was like about 50 odd euro, 40, 50 odd euro at Essen to buy Flamecraft retail. And then it was about 20 something euro a piece to buy each of the 3 upgrades. So the deluxe version cost you about 90 to 100 euro depending on the offer at that time. So 100 euro for this game. That's asking a lot value-wise. But the dragons, you get these cool little wooden meeples with dragons, and they're cool. They've got like little designs on them and that, and it's like, yeah, these are perfectly fine. I don't need unpainted miniatures to replace these for 20 odd pound or something, especially when there's only 6 of them. You know, I'm perfectly happy with that. So don't worry about that. The metal coins, I mean, yeah, the coins in here are, well, cardboard garbage, frankly. They're not particularly interesting. I would substitute clay chips for these. I've got the Sinister, I was about to say Sinister 6, but, you know, the Sinister Fish coin chest that I can use. These coins are pretty basic and there, but honestly, you don't have that many coins in the game. I mean, if you're lucky, you'll get about, what, 5 or 6 by the time the game ends. So the fact that you're using cardboard coins is not a big deal to spend money to get a pouch with metal coins in it. There's enough ways to substitute. The only upgrade I would definitely be tempted to get, and that's only because I think these chits are kind of garbage, is the wooden token resources, because you get a lot of those resources and you do use a lot of them in the game. There's multiple resources. I mean, there's 6 different types here, but in the retail box, all you get is this tiny little cardboard chip.
I feel like I'm gonna break this damn thing.
Pretty thin, pretty basic design, graphic artwork. It's, yeah. This could have been a lot more interesting, and I don't see why you couldn't have put the wooden tokens in the box normally. I mean, honestly, if you had these wooden meeples and, you know, some slightly, you know, some wooden coins maybe, and these tokens were wooden, they don't have to be huge, make them this small, but make them wooden, or thicker cardboard at least, then I'd be singing the praises like 10 out of 10 for component quality in this game. But as it is, I'm not a fan of this cardboard here. I find this a bit chintzy and a little bit bleh, but I like these wooden meeples, and the artwork is really good, and the cardstock is a little on the flimsy side. You might want to sleeve these because you are going to be doing a lot of playing and tucking and stuff like that, so you might want to get yourself some mini Euro sleeve cards. I think it's mini Euro that will fit these, but don't quote me on that. Go find out on BGG. But yeah, I'd suggest maybe getting some sleeves. So There's some aspects of component quality that are pretty stellar, and some that aren't quite up to speed. The box quotes 1 to 5 players, 60 minutes. It's going to take you a bit longer than 60 minutes with a teach and 5 players, and honestly, 5 doesn't kill the game, but I think it outstays its welcome by the time you get to the upper end of 4 players and certainly 5 players. You know, 5 just feels like they just bolted it onto the box like with every other game in existence to make it sell more. Honestly, just find another game if you're going to do 5 players. But that being said, you play this with solo 2, 3 players, this game is going to go in speedy fashion. And 4 is not the longest game ever either. It certainly has a bit of a good game arc as well, because you start off with a few starter shops, you know, some fairly basic ones that don't even have abilities, but then eventually you're putting out all sorts of dragons on these various shops, and some of them are bouncing around all over the place, they're triggering multiple effects, and you can come up with some fairly janky turns at times, particularly if you're using the companion cards as an optional variant where you've got a once per game ability that's pretty powerful. Do not do what we did in our first game of this, where we decided to read that rule wrong. Because most of the time you get these abilities, you assume that they're once per turn, once per round, or once every now and again, like you exhaust it in that. Oh dear, we decided that this was not once per game, we decided this was basically once per turn.
Stupid! You're so stupid!
Whoops! This created the most janky, broken game of Flamecraft you could possibly play. Once per game, get that rule right. But other than that, like I say, I'm not factoring that in as a deal breaker. That was our fault, you know, or possibly my fault because I read the rules like that. But the game goes on at a fairly speedy pace, and the rules being fairly straightforward and the graphic design being relatively straightforward, other than the font used in certain places, means that the game goes at a quick pace and you don't feel like you're waiting too long. But again, 4 players and definitely 5, I feel that you're the downtime might just be a bit too long, because it's difficult to necessarily plan out your whole turn, particularly if you're after certain dragons, because all it takes is for somebody to put a dragon on the spot you wanted, or somebody to use the purple dragon and start bouncing them around to completely mess up your turn. The enchantment cards, you know, they're all pretty generic. They just get you points or various rewards for playing them. But there's a bit of a luck element to the game where the enchantments will come out on the mat and they'll basically, you know, be available, but you just might have that situation where you're one short of a particular ingredient, but somebody else just conveniently has it in front of them, and by turn order they just happen to get it before you. It's, you know, this is definitely not a game you're playing to play like skillfully or like a proper strategic Euro. This is pretty much a tactical, you know, fun, charming little game that's pretty light. It's gonna have a decent amount of luck, but not so much luck that it's just roll the die and see what happens. You do make choices in the game, and they do matter. The game falters a little bit in its variety though. I like the fact that there's a lot of shops, and there certainly is a lot of shops. This variety isn't a problem. You have a few starter shops, but you'll get maybe another 6 or 7 out, I forget the exact number, and you know, there's a lot of different shops to have, so that's all well and good. But the dragon types are a little bit kind of stoic. You know, they are, the color is what ability it has. There's no other variation with them, and some dragons are definitely more useful than others. The bulk of your points in this game are going to come from enchantments. That's just the way it is. So you're going to be needing goods in order to facilitate these. So naturally, the 2 dragons that give you goods, which are these 2, so 2 of one good or 3 different, these ones are really good to have. And most of the time, these are the ones that are being triggered. The one that allows you to give a good away for 2 points, it's nice if you've got spares, but other than that, it's essentially just 2 points every now and again. This doesn't get triggered very much. I mean, I try to trigger it a fair amount, but then I'm just hurting myself the more I gift. The purple one gets triggered way too much if it comes out in bulk, because basically it gets triggered so that it can bring back the dragons that give you goods. So basically these 3 might as well be identical. This literally might as well just be a clone of these 2 for how it gets used. The 2 though that basically revolve around dragon cards, the yellow one drawing cards and the red one placing them, these feel a little underpowered compared to the other ones. These don't get triggered anywhere near as often as others, because if you're playing this dragon to draw a dragon, you're just rinsing and repeating itself. I've just played this so that I can draw another dragon. Well, then why don't I just find another way to draw a dragon, or why don't I just get some goods and do an enchantment which has a reward of get a dragon? So I might as well just do that instead. And the red one, place a dragon in town. That's good if you have a hand of a ton of dragons, but if you don't, that's not exactly a massive deal. And frankly, placing a dragon just gets you a little cheapo reward every now and again, like maybe a point or two, or a coin, or, you know, a good. It's not exactly a massive deal to place the dragon down. It's better to trigger the dragon abilities. That's what it's more good for. And some of the shops, I mean, some of the shops are fine, but there's a few that I just find a little bit, like, a little too powerful. I mean, you know, fire a dragon from your hand and then gift it to a player for 5 points. That's pretty powerful to get 5 points on there. These ones which let you get, you know, let you gift goods to other players for points. Again, goods are good to have and keep. Gaining goods is always going to be a better one than that. But there's one in here, I can't seem to find it at the moment. Oh, here we go. Yeah, the Dragon Alley. And leave 2 coins to gain rewards, which are pretty sizable rewards. I mean, 2 dragons, a fancy dragon and 2 points, or 5 points. You know, that's pretty good. And visit another shop. So you lose 2 points, but you gain, you know, some decent rewards, or 5 points on top. So you're gaining 3, but then you get to go to another shop and do basically another turn. This is a pretty popular place to visit. But then you just get a few that don't get visited very much. And so I feel like maybe the balance is a little bit off with some of them. But again, it's not a deal breaker for the game. It's just one of those niggles I found. Mainly, I don't like it for the fact that these 2 dragons just seem kind of weak. Like, these are definitely bottom tier dragons. The green one's kind of mid tier. And then these 3 are like triggering all the time. Everybody wants goods because everybody wants enchantments. You know, enchantments are the way to get points, frankly. You know, you might get a particular setup with shops that gives you points for some other weird, you know, contrived way of doing it, but that's going to be few and far between. You really do need to get these. The fancy dragons are a nice way of scoring points as well, but it's luck of the draw. You get to start off with one, but then when you draw them during the game, you might get a fancy dragon that doesn't score for you in the right way at all. Or, you know, anyway, okay, if I can get one that says, get me a bunch of points if I have the most food, that's an easy one to achieve. But then you get the ones where it's like, have unique dragons in hand, and, you know, pay a ton of goods to get some points. What else you got? Gain points for every starter dragon that's not on, no, for every shop that doesn't have its starter dragon on it. That takes a lot more effort than just simply have the most food. So it's, again, luck of the draw as to whether you actually earn a decent amount of points from these. But if you can draw a bunch of them, it's definitely one way to go. And very quickly, to touch on the solo mode in the game. The solo mode is basically the same as multiplayer. There's a couple of pages in the book with some challenges in order to, you know, to get various unlocks. You use a very specified set of shops and dragons to begin with, and then you can unlock more. But it plays out pretty much like the multiplayer. You have your turn, you flip a dragon off the deck and see where it goes. You go clockwise round, put it somewhere it can go, and then if you've got one of 2 other markers of the same color, it goes on the shop. And much like in the multiplayer game, when you go to a shop, you gift a good to another player if they're there. So the solo mode is basically just multiplayer with 1 or 2 minor changes on the steps. Other than that, though, it is a way to play Flamecraft in about 30 to 40 minutes, because it is pretty quick when you're doing it. So honestly, the solo mode works, with the caveat that I think the scoring is a bit broken. The scoring in this is insane. You know, it wants you to get 75 points before you can even get an achievement, and that's assuming you meet the achievement. So that's just to qualify to even check that you get the achievement. Anything below it is shopkeeper, 75 to 89 is flamekeeper, 90 plus is master of flame. We only barely got that high in scoring when we played the broken version of the game with the companion abilities, okay? And you don't use companions in the solo mode, broken or otherwise. So I don't know how you're supposed to get 75 points in this game, but believe me, it's not something that happens very often. So these achievements are not easy to attain, and I don't want to have to keep playing this game over and over and over again to find some fluky situation where I just happen to get 75 points, because a lot of it is going to come down to what shops come out and whether these things get in your way, and, you know, what fancy dragons you draw. There is a decent amount of luck in the game, so to have a really tough point total to achieve kind of goes against it, really, and makes it not that enjoyable if you know it's going to be a massive uphill struggle.
You know nothing, Jon Snow.
So Flamecraft is charming. It's a charming light game. There's not a huge amount wrong with it. I mean, a couple of things that I think were, probably should be balanced a little bit better. It will service kids fine once they've had a game or two to get used to some of the dragon abilities and that. But gamers will be able to pick it up easily. It's a good rule book. It's very easy to follow, easy to teach. The artwork is beautiful. The components could be better though. I don't like these tiny little like cardboard chits and horrible money as an excuse to basically say buy our deluxe upgrades. The game itself, I think, is worth it for €40 or £40 or whatever the retail price might be. I think for that kind of money, you're getting a very good package for that. But for €100? No way! No way would I tell anybody to go buy this for £100 with all the deluxe upgrades. I mean, that is too much money for a game that is like a 60-minute light, fairly lucky affair. It's like, no, you do not need the miniatures, you do not need the metal coins. Just substitute your own coins like everybody can do these days, and potentially, if you must have an upgrade, get the upgraded tokens, because to be honest, if I hang on to this game, I'm probably going to get those wooden tokens because I don't want to play with these horrible little cardboard chits all the time. That many wooden tokens would actually bling this game out quite nice a bit. I can forgive the weird artwork sort of misalignment on the map. That's not a massive deal. It doesn't break my game. But everything else in here is pretty good. The rulebook and reference aids and that. It's a decent, well-packaged, charming game. Just not something that blows my mind. A lot of people are talking very highly of it, going like, oh, this is one of the best of the year. And it's like, yes, this was totally worth the $100 I paid for it. Not sure. I mean, don't quote me if that $100 isn't right. I feel it would have cost you €100 at Essen. Maybe you got it on GameFound for cheaper, but then you got to factor shipping in. That's another thing. I don't think the game is worth €100. No way. But it is worth 40. I think 40 would have been a good price for this. If you buy this just retail and you don't care too much about the component front, I think it's a good, solid package. Not one that blows my mind, but one that's good and I can recommend. I'm giving it a 7 out of 10. It's good, not great. I don't think it's mind-blowing, but it's got enough charm to it, enough good quality to it, and enough appeal for a lot of gamers, both light and heavy gamers, that they will get something out of this. So 7 out of 10, good. Give it a try, but just maybe not splash out too much money on it if you can help it. So that's it for me on this episode of The Broken Meeple. I'm Luke Hector, and if you like what you see, then I'd love you to do a few things for me. Thumb it up on YouTube, as well as Board Game Geek when you see the post on there. It means a great deal for the algorithm. But also, consider subscribing to the channel, but get your comments down below. What do you think of Flamecraft? Is this a game that you love? Did you spend all that money on the deluxe improvements? Was it worth it? Is this one that your kids are easily doing? Perhaps I've underestimated kids' intelligence, or are you like heavy gamers and you like this for its charm and its feel? I'd certainly like to know your thoughts. Until next time, you can check out more content on the channel, including the review I did for Starship Captains and also the review I did for Lacrimosa. Take care, and remember, as always, regardless of which dragon you want as your personal little pet, they're so cute. It's still only a game. Bye for now.
Dracarys.